Okay, good evening. My name is Bob Connors. It is 6:01 p.m. and I'd like to call the November 19th meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Mason, can you read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call of the members present?
Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferret, Conservation Agent, of the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the November 19th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer,
Yes.
TJ Conti, absent. Mick Brown,
Yes.
Diane O'Brien,
Yes.
Woody Knight, not here yet, and Bob Connors.
Yes.
And Frank Wettenkamp is also not here tonight. Good evening, everyone. This is open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom conference, as posted on the agenda of the Conservation Commission section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Applicants or other representatives may be called upon to speak and or share information to the screen if able on the fly. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your mic, use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board and committee members should be called upon in a first name alphabetical order to ease the process. After board and committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first seek questions through the chat function. When participants are using this function, please list your name, address, then your question. The chair will then seek questions from the public who wish to speak. They'll be asked to identify their names and address, question, and once the chair has a list of all public commentators, they will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes to any comments. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be taken. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Mason. Okay, meeting minutes review, October 15th, 2024. Can we take a minute and review those? If we have any comments, corrections, or concerns.
You know what, Bob? I wasn't here for that one, and we might not have enough people.
Ah, that's a good point.
Come up with
Okay.
them once in a while.
Well, why don't we table that until the next meeting?
I just suggested that under 63 Sunset, there's a spelling error. Project implications do not conform to Dune standards. I think you mean impacts. So
Okay.
that was just a little typo.
Okay, so we'll just table that. We'll put that on the December 3rd agenda. Okay, meeting minutes for November 5th. Why don't we take a minute, review those? Okay, any questions, concerns, or comment? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the November 5th meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I knew
go
I
ahead.
actually-
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mary, you were reading as I'm speaking.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
16 Riverfront Drive. The as-built conditions were reviewed at a Precious CC meeting. I don't think it was Precious, but
It was
might have
precious.
been a little
Yeah,
bit, but it was, I think, previous. Yeah,
Yeah, well, TJ may agree that it was,
it could have been Precious.
yeah, could have been, oh, he was 4060, that's right. Okay, so, with the amendments of correcting some typos, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, all in favor, Mary,
Yes.
Mick,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, we carried an RDA for 14 Pine Island Road. They asked to be continued to this meeting. Mason, why don't you give an update? As I recall, you haven't received a submittal. Excuse me. You haven't received any information on this one as of yet.
Yeah,
correct?
no information. I'm still waiting on a plan for John to submit, but he hasn't submitted one. I don't think he's here tonight.
Okay. All right, why don't we just continue this to the 12-3 meeting? We'll just carry it forward and I think Team, what he's gonna find out, it's gonna be converted to an NOI. So at that point, he can withdraw it and go forward. Okay. Enforcement order, 108 Main Street, subdivision for unpermitted work. Mary, did the governor finally sign that bill on tolling of the agreements, tolling of permits?
I believe that is in effect now, yes.
Okay. So with that, it would seem to be a moot point, as this would then have a order of conditions that was valid with that extension.
So perhaps we should submit a letter to the applicant, giving the new expiration date.
Yeah, I think Maureen Harold had reached out, and what they're going to probably do is request an extension. And what they were gonna do, what we're asking people to do on extensions that fall under this is to put together a one-page summary of expiration, their view of how it's told and what the new expiration date would be, so we can just review their their synopsis of the matter. So at this point, I would suggest, do we want to take action to close out this enforcement order, as it now has an order of conditions that is in force? Seems to be a moot point to keep it in place.
As long
So
as
is
that
there-
order is in effect. I haven't seen that, but I trust Mary.
Yeah,
I haven't seen anything
Yeah, that's what
to that effect, so
yeah,
we could hold it open for one more meeting just to make sure. we
okay,
have Some
yep.
Yeah.
paperwork, so,
I'd hate to
Okay.
close it and then have it
yeah,
something weird
Yeah.
happen.
Well, we just reissue it, but it's
Oh, that's
yeah.
true.
But
yeah.
that's that's extra work, so we'll just
Mhm.
Yep.
no one's requested it and no one's here to speak on that behalf, so I think when we get the extension request, we can do them both at the same time. Okay, next matter is an open enforcement order on 30 Riverview Drive. As you recall, at the last meeting, the applicant has requested that we continue this to January 2025. They've engaged the services of Mike DeRosa, so no action needs to be taken on that. Enforcement order for 62 Middle Road, same thing. We've continued this to May of 2025, simply to review the planting success, at which time we'll consider closing out the enforcement order and issuing a certificate of compliance. Okay, we have no extension request. Certificate of compliance, DEP file number 0501389, was issued on 8/18/22 for 68 Green Street Lot 2. Applicant wants to close out the open order of conditions on the property and request a certificate of compliance. Mason, can you provide an update on this?
Yep, so I was able to review notes from the last public hearings. I think they continued last meeting. But going over that, it looked like the commission was pretty satisfied with the completion of the project, and the only thing that we were looking for was the missing riprap at the back of the emergency spillway that has since been installed. I can share a photo of that.
Yeah, I think I had included a picture of that team in the Dropbox.
Yep. Great.
There we go. Okay, questions from the members. Mary, any further questions on this one?
But I think there was some requirement to remove some pavement as well. Do you know if that was done, Mason?
That was lot 2.
Okay. Great,
Yeah,
then-
we issued a partial on that one, Mary, so,
okay, got it. So then, yes, I'm fine with this.
okay. Mick, any questions on this one?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions on this?
Is this the one that had the bare spots that needed to be reseeded?
That was
That
also
was lot 2. Yeah, that was lot 2.
Okay,
And what we
Sorry.
did on that, Diane, if you recall, was we issued a partial certificate of compliance. And we identified the revegetation, those sparse areas, and removal of some broken pavement, some other debris
Yeah, okay.
on the back of the property.
They're just so close.
Yeah, wow, lot one, lot two. Okay, any raised hands from the public at this time? I don't see any. Okay, do any members have a request for a site visit or any additional information?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 68 Green Street. Lot one, roll call vote, all in favor, Mary,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, certificate of compliance, DEP file number 0501375. 21 Marsh Ave, applicant would like to close out an open order of conditions on the property. Request a certificate of compliance. Mason, can you provide an overview and a recommendation on this matter?
So
Excuse
I
me.
was able to go out to the site today. The NOI was for landscaping improvements, the construction of a new driveway, patio, and some stone steps. Along these new projects, there were some native plantings that were installed. And then some grading that had to be done as well, along the driveway and the stone steps. For this project, I recommend a full COC. Everything that was planted looked to be healthy and alive. There are still some bare spots in their planting areas, but with the species that they have and the growth that they've had later at the end of the season, I think that this will fill in completely early in the spring. I can share those photos.
Yeah, in your Dropbox, we had the request for the certificate and they attached pictures of the work and the vegetation.
looks beautiful.
Pictures worth 1,000 words,
Mm-hmm.
as Mick Brown would say.
Does he say that?
And then there's also the approved landscaping plan, and that I believe is in the folder if anyone would like to look at that and compare it to the pictures. But it's pretty spot on, like you were saying, Mary. Everything looked really good on site.
Okay, questions from the members? Mary, any questions on this matter?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Mick, any questions on this?
No questions? No, I'm good.
Okay, Diane, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Diane. I do not have any questions. Any raised hands from the public at this time? Okay, I do not see anyone. If anyone has a question on this matter, just give us your name and address. Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 21 Marsh Avenue.
So
Roll
moved.
call vote. All in favor?
Second.
Oh, excuse me.
Yep.
So Diane, you made the motion. Mick, you seconded.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. All in favor? Mary?
Yes,
Mick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connor votes yes. All right. Okay, public hearing. This does not have a DEP file number. It's for 268 Middle Road, Governor's Academy. The applicant is submitting a notice of intent for an ecological restoration project. The applicant proposes to remove a damaged and non-functioning culvert on a stream that is on the campus property. Outside and student research has been done to measure pre-existing impacts of the damaged culvert. They propose to remove the damaged culvert, repair the surrounding marsh, and install a wooden footbridge across the stream to access the island and other parts of the marsh. Patient, can you provide an overview and recommendation on this matter?
Yeah, I was able to review the NOI and also walk the site with Wendy. This culvert has been non-functioning for quite some time now. And it's a really interesting project. I think Wendy will probably have a better way of explaining everything, and I think she also wants to have some of her students share some of the research that they did and how it applies to the project.
Okay, Wendy, good evening. Just give us your name and your position at Governors and make your presentation.
Great. This is Wendy Reed for the record. I'm Environmental and Safety Manager at the Governor's Academy. I'm also joined by Roberta McLean, who's a faculty member in our science department, and three of our students, Anya Sumi, Alex Wang, and Emily Geist, who have been doing research to establish the existing conditions out in the marsh. The intent is to remove the culvert and then do the collect similar data in the spring and next fall to show the positive impact of removing the culvert. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to allow the students to just share a few slides, and then I can move into specifics on the project, if I can share my screen.
Certainly.
Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, students, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, we're Emily, Anya.
And Alex.
We're 10th graders at the Governor's Academy.
Last year we were in honors biology with Mrs. McLean, and we recorded preliminary data around the Corn Creek culvert.
We did this in order to see the future effects of removing the broken culvert. Next slide, please.
For reference, this is the damaged culvert situated and affecting Corn Creek.
Next slide, please. We recorded vegetation, abiotic, microinvertebrate, and fish, or nectin, at 7 points going from 40 meters upstream to 40 meters downstream of the culvert and found a lack of diversity. We believe this, along with other factors, can be attributed to the present damaged state of the culvert. Next slide, please. We hypothesize that the marsh surrounding the creek will become more diverse and healthier as the salinity levels are lower. We believe the ecosystem and biodiversity will benefit from the removal of the culvert. Additionally, it will allow for marine life to be able to travel upstream and downstream on either side of the culvert without any blockage or difficulty.
Furthermore, this will lead to a more balanced amount of macroinvertebrate throughout the stream. Water quality should improve, and dissolved oxygen levels will be consistent in all regions surrounding the culvert.
The results we collected will serve as baseline data for a long-time longitudinal study and will hopefully show the positive impacts of the culvert's removal. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you will look favorably upon the school's request to remove the damaged culvert.
Well, thank you very much for that detailed presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wondered if members of the commission had any questions for the students, or should I just proceed with the application?
Any questions for the students, team?
Can you tell me what size the culvert is? What the diameter is? Do we know that?
No, I'm sorry, we don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 24-inch culvert.
Thanks.
Yep.
And the length, Wendy?
It's hard to measure because the surface is so damaged, but I would estimate probably 15 to 20 feet.
So my understanding is you're seeing a significant difference between the biotics, I guess upstream and downstream of this culvert.
Yes, we are.
So exactly like, well, I don't say exactly, but like, what are some of the examples of those differences between upstream and downstream of the culvert?
Well, we had one day a bunch of fish got stuck upstream the culvert, and we had to if you look at the picture of all the fish, we had to help save them because they were all stuck and going to die when the tide went out.
So they're trying to come upstream and they're getting trapped in this culvert system.
Yeah.
Yes.
And additionally, like salinity levels, they're higher on one side, and
Mhm.
like visually, you can see the tide is like sometimes higher on one side of the culvert and low on the other.
It's pretty similar for dissolved oxygen too.
So is there blockage within the culvert, or is there what's like creating the difference in biota, I guess, between the two ends of the culvert?
Definitely, I would say the blockage
Yeah.
definitely affects it a lot.
The damage.
Mhm.
So that's preventing like fish or other organisms getting upstream, or?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Wendy, if you want to continue.
Yeah, so I thought you all have the materials in the NOI that I submitted. I just wanted to maybe show some of the maps and quickly go through the photos. This is the locust map. You can see Middle Road right here that cuts through the marsh, and this is the site over here where the culvert is. Here's Corn Island. This was an old agricultural area, and there was a farm road from here, from campus out there. But it wasn't campus at that time. This is just a little more close up. You can see this is the downstream creek. Upstream, the creek actually branches off in two locations. And then there are older farm dikes here and up here that actually used to allow flow from the Parker River to come right through this marsh. These were not included in the packet, but I just wanted to give you a sense of the approach to the work area so that you are confident that no other damage will be created. This is the corner of the field, the athletic field. And the path, it's actually a cross-country path, goes into the woods here. This shows you the approach from the path to the marsh, which is over here. And then this is the approach in the marsh. So it used to be a farm road, but it's a pretty well-traveled area. The culvert is right about here. So this is a panoramic view that shows the upstream and downstream. You can see that it's quite wide and scoured here on the upstream. The culvert opening is right about here upstream. Downstream, it's way down here. So this next photo shows some of the damage. There's actually a hole in the middle of the old farm road. This whole area used to be road, and all that soil has eroded. The rocks have tipped over because they're not supported. Up here, there's that scoured area. It's much more pronounced upstream. So I think the tide gets caught and it's circling, trying to move out. This is from the culvert road looking upstream, again, the scoured area. Beyond this, the creek is very narrow, 2 to 3 feet with steep banks. You can see looking downstream. This is also a ponded area, not so much scouring, but it is quite wide here, and then it narrows down into the 2 to 3 foot width going downstream. This is looking upstream in the scoured area. Here's the opening of the culvert right here. And here's a close-up. You can just see the top part of the culvert. So this is what's blocking the culvert. These rocks have collapsed around the mouth of it. Downstream, here's this ponded area looking back towards the farm road. Here's the opening of the culvert. There's a little bit of blockage here in front, but it's really, you can see way through to the end. It's the upstream end that's really blocked. But all of these rocks are falling down around it, and the edge of the culvert is broken off here. You can see. So that's, I also just put in a slide. This is the tentative plan for the pedestrian bridge. Until the Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control District does the work, we don't really know how long the bridge has to be because all of that rock and native material needs to be removed before we can figure out where to install the bridge. But this is the type of bridge we want to install that has perforated decking. It will use 4x4 posts to anchor it in the corners using this hardware. And then we'll have a railing on it as well. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I don't want to repeat things that are already in the application unless there's specific questions on that.
Okay. Wendy, typically the commission reserves most of our comments until we get a file number and technical comments for the obvious. You had made a detailed presentation earlier as a preliminary. But I guess one question on the proposed elevation of the bridge above grade or above the stream, what's the separation would be? Just curious.
Well, the depth to the bottom of the creek, I think, is probably 4 or 5 feet from the farm road.
Mhm.
So the plan is to have the bridge post actually right at grade. So we don't want to elevate it at all. We want to make it as low as possible. But I think it'll still be high enough that we need a railing on it, which should not be anything that impacts the wetland values there.
All right, team, anyone have questions? Or do you want to reserve those till we have full file number and technical comments?
I have some questions, Bob.
Sure, go ahead, Mary.
This is a great project and we want to be supportive of this, but because you're working in a sensitive area, you're gonna be triggering a multi-level review at DEP. Right now, you're administratively, it looks like they're waiting for a fee. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I checked the website today and they've received the NOI, but I guess the fee goes to a different office. I sent both the same time as I submitted to you all, so
Right, so the fee goes to the lockbox address. It's a PO box.
right,
with the
that's where I sent
transfer.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would I would contact DEP to verify that they've received that because they won't start their technical review until they have the fee. And
Right.
it seems like they've had it for quite a while now, so there's some kind of glitch that probably needs to be resolved. You are, it also looks like you're in ACEC, Area of Critical Environmental Concern,
Yep.
and you're working in Salt Marsh. So that there's a MEPA process that has to precede us. You're filing as a limited project, ecological restoration limited project.
I didn't intend to. I filled out the Form 3A. And I did
Right.
check with MEPA and they said that there was no filing requirement other than the environmental monitor notification.
Right, so you took care of that, but
Yeah.
so it's just a straight ecological restoration?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure that the boardwalk will qualify under that program, so you may have to separate your filings. And do
Okay.
the culvert first, and then the boardwalk after, and it will have to be designed according to it may trigger a lot more permitting. It's going to be over a
Right.
tidal area, so chapter 91, Army Corps, it's going to trigger a bunch of different permits as well, not just us. So,
Mhm.
and it'll have to meet height to width ratios of 1-to-1 minimum, things like that. So it's a little bit more complicated to get the boardwalk approved. That the ecological restoration, if it's, I thought somewhere I read that it was the limited project one, but you're saying straight ecological restoration.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
and that mosquito control is going to actually do the work.
Yes, they are.
Do you have plans? I guess I didn't see them in our latest Dropbox, but it must have been in the previous.
No, I mean, I talked about this with Mason. I mean, it's such a small area. I would prefer not to hire an engineer to do a plan of it. I was hoping the photos would suffice, but I mean, I can draft something that, may not be
Yeah.
perfectly to scale.
So one of the issues is that, well, DEP is going to want to have a plan to scale at with mean high water, mean low water, higher high tide, and then accurate enough so we can evaluate what the project impacts would be. And sometimes in these tidal restorations, they also want a hydraulic analysis to determine whether or not opening this up is going to cause impacts up or downstream from additional tidal flow. So if you're opening this up and there are properties upstream that could be affected, things like that need to be worked out also. So it depends on how much of an obstruction it actually is presenting right now. Sometimes the channel goes around these culverts. So there's a lot of details of this to be worked out. We can't approve it with just photographs and a written description. It's going to need, we're going to need a plan to reference and, sort of specific project goals. So I think the first step maybe would be to do a site visit and take a look at the site, and but ideally with mosquito control folks that are going to be doing the work. present so they can describe a little bit what their construction methods are gonna be, how they're gonna prevent activity, but prevent tidal flow in the work area, minimize sedimentation, all those kind of things.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit, construction wise, it's a pretty simple project. But
Right.
all the bells and whistles that go along with it make it a little bit harder to do. So those are my comments. At this, I'm doing a similar project for Mass Audubon out in Rowley. And we're gonna run into the same issues and they want to do the same thing, pull out a culvert. This one isn't really much of an obstruction because it really is, the channel has gone around it. But building a boardwalk, going through the whole permitting process, for all of that. Doing borings to determine what the sediment can hold in terms of a boardwalk, support system and everything else. So it's a little bit more involved.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm happy to
Good.
have you out and do a site. I think that would help to visualize the site.
Okay, so Mary, if we do a sidewalk, who else would we want there besides Wendy and the students? Would we want
Well, it sounds
mosquito
like,
control?
Right, I think that it would be useful to have them there as well. And then I think, having DEP's comments in
Right.
hand at the time of the site visit, so we can understand a little bit of what their response might be. Have you received any comments from your public notice in the environmental monitor?
We have not, other than the Department of Marine Fisheries replied today and said they had no concerns that time of year restrictions were not an issue and it's not a diadromous fish run
Great.
concern. Yeah.
In natural heritage? Is it,
I didn't file with them. I contacted them and described the project. It's not within any of the natural heritage areas, so they said it was not necessary. Yeah.
okay, good. We would need the letter from Marine Fisheries though.
That was sent today to Clay and so he should have it. Yeah.
Perfect, okay. Thanks.
All right, any other questions, Mason? Any questions at this point, or you want to wait for technical comments and a site visit?
I think if we wait for technical comments and a site visit, that'd be best.
Okay. Mick, any comments? Diane,
No,
how about
Bob?
yourself?
No, no other comments, no other questions.
Okay,
No,
okay. So Wendy, what I'm gonna suggest is we're not gonna take any action tonight. We're gonna do a
Right.
site visit.
Yeah.
What I would recommend is, do you want to request a continuance to our December 3rd meeting and see if some of these other pieces fall into place?
Yes,
think
please.
Mary's guidance on waiting for technical comments before we do the site visit, I think makes good sense to me. So why don't we do this? Are there any raised hands from the public at this point? We're kind of getting out of a norm here, but we have some young minds that from the school that are involved here, so we're extending great courtesies here. Mick, do you have your hand up? Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to the December 3rd, 2024 meeting.
I moved.
Do we have a? Okay, Woody. Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. So Wendy, what I would suggest is, why don't you and Mason, if the technical comments come in before the December 3rd and you get your number,
Mhm.
and that the additional information that Mary suggested you forward to Mason from Fisheries, I think would be helpful. And I think we got to coordinate. We're probably going to be looking at weather in mid-December, I'm thinking, to put everyone together and have a fighting chance of having all the players in place at a site visit and technical comments in hand. So, all right, well, thank you very much, Wendy. As always, you guys do an amazing submittal. And it was just great to see your students participating.
Yeah.
and Wendy, also one more thing, just mosquito control has some certain exemptions from the Wetland Protection
Right.
Act. So I'd like to understand a little bit more about that, and that may help you a little bit with the process, so.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay,
All right, thank you
Alright.
very much. Appreciate your
Okay.
time tonight.
yep, have a
Thank you,
great
Benny.
holiday. Moving
Thank
on.
you.
Next matter, we have a continued public hearing, DEP file number 0501436, 286 High Road to construct an addition to an existing single-family dwelling with associated utilities, expanded driveway within a 100-foot buffer to salt marsh area. Team, we've done a site visit on this. There were some technical comments that DEP had submitted on the application. And Mason, why don't you give us an update of where we're at on that?
Yeah, Bill Holt reached out a day or two ago requesting to continue to the next meeting. He wasn't able to update the plans and get out on site to do what he wanted to do because of the high tides and in the moon cycles. So he's going to be looking to continue to the next meeting.
Okay. All right, well, any questions, team, on this? All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to the 12/3/24 meeting.
So
Oh,
moved.
so moved.
Second,
So Mick and Diane. Okay, roll call, all in favor. Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. All right, next matter is a general project discussion. We received notice that 170 Orchard Street intent to sell. And there's a chapter 61A component to this. So Mary and I have been talking about this and just trying to kind of create a procedure and how to proceed. Obviously, it's a interesting project. No one is going to be presenting the project to us. It's not part of the requirement apparently of chapter 61. So we won't have anyone answer questions. So Mary had suggested that the commission in the general practice should investigate and provide feedback to the select board on any potential development constraints relating to the Wetland Protection Act, the site's ecological significance, to determine if it would be suitable for acquiring as open space or recreation. The statement of proposed use of the land, and I'll read it. A portion of land is proposed to be used for 4 single-family houses, and the balance of the land is proposed to be conveyed to the Essex County Greenbelt Association. The land consists of 20.5 acres and is located at 170 Orchard Street, Newbury. There was an enclosed map, and the documents that were submitted were in the Dropbox. So I guess it seems that out of 20 acres, a majority of this land is going to remain open. So why don't I stop there and open it up to questions from the members? Mary, comments on this one?
yeah, 2 things. One, I think, just so everyone understands, under 61A, the town has a right of first refusal when agricultural land gets sold, land that's been under agricultural use and benefiting from the tax break for that land. Once it gets sold, the town has a right of first refusal. The second point is that if this is a Greenbelt project, my husband works for Greenbelt, I may have to recuse myself from this.
Okay. All right, well, so Mary, they don't own it yet.
Okay,
So I think that everything is a hypothetical at this point, because if the
Yep.
town select board decides to buy it, then, so be it, but.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on this, Mary? I mean, first blush, this seems to me they've taken into consideration of leaving a lot of this open in a natural state.
I think that it would be great if, Mason and maybe a couple of us take a look at it and, take some notes and decide at the next meeting whether I don't know what the clock is on this, but, whether we have any particular thoughts about areas that might require some protection or just the significance of the property.
I think the only thing we can actually do is either make a recommendation that they buy it, or leave it to their own, you know, the will of the select board to go forward.
Right.
I don't think we actually can incorporate. I guess we can suggest if the town keeps it, we would recommend you do that.
I guess if we wanted to submit a letter on behalf of the board,
Yeah, we do,
need more information, and so then we could just discuss it at the next meeting about whether we wanted to have to submit anything.
Yep.
Or just let it lie.
yeah, I think we have to submit a communication to the board. And I had drafted one just as a sample. And it was that to authorize the chair to send a communication to the select board indicating the proposed statement of use prioritizes ecological preservation a majority of the 20-acre, and that it's the pleasure of the select board to proceed as it sees fit in this matter. That seems to be kind of what typically happens, but that doesn't mean that's what we have to say. I just wanted to have some sample. So, well, why don't we do this? We're not under the gun. I think there's a 90-day window to respond to this. So if we would like to schedule a site visit.
Yeah.
Okay. Mason, why don't we do this? It's going to be interesting because it's private property at this point. Where generally if we had an NOI or an RDA, we'd have reasonable access to the property. So why don't we do this? Why don't we table this to the 12/3 meeting? And if you could, Mason, find out what the procedure would be for access, or are we even entitled to do a site visit, you know, pursuant to chapter 61A.
Yep, I'll look
And-
into that.
And we can schedule a site, if we can get access, team, we can schedule it right after the 12/3 meeting, if that makes sense to everyone. Okay, Diane, any questions on this?
Nope, I just had question marks, what we were supposed to be doing, so I have a better sense now.
Well, we reached out to town council to find out, do we need to conduct a public hearing? Do we need a formal vote? Do we need to actually do anything? And it went from, at the end of the day, it's really not our decision. It's the select board's decision whether they want to expend any resources on this. Woody, the planning board also gets notified in this. What does the planning board typically do in matters like this?
Well, this went through a lengthy process with us, multiple public hearings and we did a couple site walks there to approve the 4-house subdivision. The entranceway is only 50 feet, so that was on there as you know, one of the things that
A
we had to
variance.
get variance. Yes, thank you, because it's 53 feet now, and so we accepted the subdivision, and the 4 houses will be along where the houses are in the picture off the property. They'll run along there, so that they are preserving a vast area of land there to continue agricultural use. And Greenbelt coincided as a steward of the open space, and with the understanding that it was going to continue to be farmed. So that was all weighed in the factor of our board to accept the project. And to answer your question, where we have gone through this process, we would probably just, I'm speaking for myself, but it's going to be on our next agenda, I believe, not the one coming up, but the one after. And we're going to basically just convey, I'm going to suggest that we convey it as will of the select board, because we went through this whole process of getting the 4-house subdivision and rolling here. And with the vast part of it being in Greenbelt stewardship, it will be preserved, you know. So,
Okay,
Okay.
Mick, do you want to add anything? Any thoughts on this?
No, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So it's kind of a hammerhead lot, I guess, in a sense, right? Where we have very limited access into a large piece of property, correct?
yes.
It sounds like a
Yep.
pork chop lot to me. that it-
Yeah, pork chop. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Bob. I like that.
That's
And
what
the
I'm saying.
intent for residential home lots and the rest of whatever isn't used on residential will be given back to open space. Is that the gist of it, kind of? Woody, I guess, put that to you.
Yes, yes, and everything's real tight to the right. You can see where the bare dirt is. Everything's was kept right tight to the right in
Mhm.
the road. And we even had multiple discussions and went back and forth with them to have access along. The farmer will still have access to get in along so he can get way out back. So
Yeah, it's-
everything's really right up tight to the houses that are exist on the right. So there was lengthy discussion about.
So there's gonna be
making
a,
sure
like
that farmers couldn't
a service road for the ag use? Is that what you? on
Yeah.
the- Okay.
Yep, there's an easement, yep.
So,
So we made sure that it could still be farmed. And so we're preserving, they're preserving a lot of the farmland. They are taking some, but they're preserving some of the farmland there so that it can still be used for farming. So, and everyone was in
And are
agreement.
they, is this corn? Are they currently haying it? Is it salt marsh
Uh,
grass?
It's been in cow corn for years.
Okay,
Eric, I believe Eric and Raleigh has farmed it since I was in high school.
yep.
so it's been actively farmed this whole time, Woody?
Yep,
Okay.
including this year, they grew corn on it this year because the people who are gonna purchase the land or have purchased the land, weren't ready to start construction or anything, so they went ahead and let the farmer farm it again this year, so it was all farmed this year.
Mary, any further questions?
Thanks, Woody.
No, then GIS shows some wetlands at the north end there, but likely that's pretty far away from any of the houses.
Mm.
So I don't know if anybody's walked the whole site to determine the extent of it. I didn't see the wetlands on the subdivision plan, but maybe they were on there. So that's my only comment.
This new, I have a question, excuse me, Bob.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
Okay.
Woody.
This didn't go before conservation before? Well, during the process?
I don't
Didn't
recall
it
it.
go through? I thought it did.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, Peter would have been liaison at the time, so I don't recollect whether it did or not, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, it's really familiar. So,
Well, you know what? I think I do recall this. You know what? I'm just gonna go to the portal and look up 170 and see what,
Yeah.
see what it says.
Because I think conservation had to weigh in on where Mary was just saying on the north end, right where the 50 feet breaks open into vast land, because on one of our sidewalks, I do recall, they're gonna have I guess, what do you call it, like a retention area for water,
mhm.
for runoff. It was engineered, and there was a conversation about that I do recall.
Well, regardless, why don't we do this, team? Why don't we continue this matter to the December 3rd meeting? And we'll be able to, ascertain access and double check, Mason can double check the status of the order of conditions. I do recall order of conditions on this, if it's,
Oh, yeah.
but,
Okay.
let me just see here. So I'm not seeing anything that comes in as 170, but. Okay, so Mason, why don't we do this? We're gonna continue this matter to the 12/3 meeting. If you can just double check access for a site visit, what do we need to do?
Mhm.
If anything? And if you can dig up any outstanding order of conditions on this property. And forward it to me and I'll add it to the Dropbox for the 12/3 meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, team, does that sound like a plan?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yes, and it was the Bulgaris estate, if you can't find it in the 170 Orchard Street. So,
Yeah, I'm assuming, Woody, it would just be well, no, you know, I'm saying 170 Orchard Street may not be the actual. We'll have to look at the subdivision title on that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on. General project discussion, Larkin Road Dam removal presentation. We received a communication from Gomez and Sullivan. They were providing a summary of the project. They're available tonight to present. Just reading here. Actually, I saw Jill Griffiths. Jill, why don't you identify yourself and why don't you bring us up to speed of where you're at?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. I'm Jill Griffiths. I'm a water resources engineer with Gomez and Sullivan Engineers. I've been working on this project for a number of years with various partners, including the town and others who are on the call. There's representatives here from Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration and Division of Marine Fisheries here as well tonight. And basically, we're working on removal of the Larkin Road Dam for the town. It's a town-owned dam. And throughout feasibility analyses, we have identified other aspects of the project that need to be addressed in coordination with the dam removal. So we just wanted to let the commission know about the project. Kind of in the past, I think it has been presented as well as an informal presentation, but bring the current members up to speed on the project and you know, give an opportunity for any additional materials that you might want to see or questions that you might want answered in the ecological restoration NOI that we expect to file in January. So I have some slides I can show tonight if you'd like, and yeah, we're available.
Okay. Yeah, so couple of quick questions.
Mhm.
What is the timeline on the actual removal? Has that been determined?
We're targeting summer and fall of 2025.
Okay, so a 120-day, 180-day project duration?
Actually, 3 to 4 months is what we're anticipating because of the other aspects of the project. It involves the I-95 bridge upstream and the USGS gauging station as well.
Okay, and you're anticipating a start date of the summer of 2025?
Yes. Ideally, end of June, beginning of July.
Okay, why don't you give us your slides and then we'll
Sure.
open up the questions from the members. Thank you,
Okay.
Jill.
Yep. Let me see if I can share here. And I will go into presentation mode. Let me know. Oh, I might have shared the wrong. Hang on. You guys are probably seeing the presenter mode, right?
Yes.
Okay.
From both sides.
See if I can swap that. Sorry.
There we go.
You're seeing the full screen now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. All right. So this is the project Larkin Dam removal and Parker River restoration. As I mentioned here, some of the project team members, it's quite a lot. These are the core project team, project management team here. As I mentioned, several are on the call. Tracy, Susie Bresney with DER, and I saw Joe with DMF. Ben Gahagan may be joining as well. And of course, Mason, we've been working with Mason as well. We're also partnering with several local nonprofit organizations, including IRWA, Parker River, Watershed Association, Trout Unlimited, Pie Rivers, the state agencies I mentioned, and federal agencies as well for funding partnerships. I represent Gomez and Sullivan as a consultant, and we also have a cultural resources consultant. And we're also coordinating with various agencies for those other structures I mentioned, the I-95 bridge, Mass DOT, and the USGS gauging station, coordinating with USGS, DEP, and DCR on that. So just a kind of broad overview of the project components. So this is a map of the project area. This is the Parker River flowing downstream down the page. And the Larkin Road Dam is located here, just upstream, about 900 feet upstream of the Larkin Road Bridge, which is here. So that's the main element, removing the dam itself. But as I mentioned, the dam impounds hydraulically up through the I-95 bridge to the USGS gauging station. So both those structures would be impacted when the dam is removed. The bridge has an existing scour problem. The abutments are scoured out. There's steel struts under the bridge that are actually exposed. So that's an existing problem. We don't want to make it any worse with the dam removal. It might slightly exacerbate it, but we're basically rolling that into this project to address that scour problem with scour protection, stone. And then the USGS gauge, you can see here, the gauging station is here, and they have a small concrete low-head weir associated with that. That would become a barrier to fish passage once the dam is removed and this downstream water level would drop. It's also in disrepair. So we're just proposing to remove that and kind of open things up to a more natural bank full channel width and stabilize the channel through this reach as well. It'll still remain as the USGS gauging station. It will just need to be recalibrated by USGS once that's complete. So that's kind of a zoomed out version overview of the project and some of the goals and anticipated benefits of the project. From the town's perspective, the aging and unsafe infrastructure will be decommissioned. It will eliminate ongoing, maintenance and repair obligations for that site. It will reduce upstream flooding by lowering water surface elevations on the upstream side. The dam is also in very poor condition. It could fail at any time, which could cause downstream flooding and property damage to the Larkin Road Bridge or other properties. So it will eliminate that risk. On the ecological side, it will restore natural riverine processes and such as sediment transport and flow through that reach. And one of the primary goals is the improvement of fish passage, specifically for diadromous fish, which are the target species that you see down here: blueback herring, alewife, which are collectively known as river herring, American eel, and sea lamprey, but also for other resident fish and a whole host of aquatic species will benefit. This is just a map showing fish passage in the watershed and current obstacles and impairments. And starting down here at the head of tide, you have the Central Street Dam that has fish passage at that facility. The Larkin Road Dam does have a fish ladder, but it's never been very effective and it's at the end of its useful life. So that is why we're looking at removal here, also because the dam serves no purpose and is in poor condition. The I-95 bridge and is not really an obstacle under current conditions or proposed, but the USGS gauge weir, as I mentioned, could be an obstacle at certain flows. And then you've got several upstream dams that have fish passage facilities and lots of access to habitat, which is shown in green throughout the river. Great habitat for the species. So this project will open up even more effective access to that habitat, and including in the impoundment as well. We plan to file this as an ecological restoration project. It sounds from the previous project presentation that you guys are pretty familiar with that process. We have been coordinating with all the various agencies to get the determinations for time of year restrictions, coordinating with DMF, DFW, and Natural Heritage. And we have, determinations of no impact from all of those agencies. The project will further many of the protected interests, including protection of fisheries, wildlife habitat, pollution, storm damage prevention, and flood control. And I'm just going to go into that a little further on this slide just to show some of the benefits. So fisheries, as I mentioned, not only for the diadromous fish species themselves, but they're also forage for many other commercial and recreational fisheries in the ocean. So it supports, economic benefits from that as well. Also other wildlife species it's foraged fish for, and just improving habitat, such as increasing bordering vegetated wetlands that are anticipated to form in the dewatered impoundment, and just increasing the overall habitat value of that waterway. Preventing pollution by, again, developing new bordering vegetated wetlands along the dewatered impoundment that can filter stormwater runoff. And also improving water quality, such as temperature and dissolved oxygen, with the impounded reach becoming more free-flowing and faster moving, reducing that stagnant water. And lastly, the flood control and storm damage, as I mentioned, this is the dam overtopping during a flood. It overtops along the entire embankment dam, which is an unsafe condition, and preventing that downstream risk of failure. So now I'm just going to kind of show a few excerpts from the design plans just to show a little more detail about the elements. I'll just skim through this quickly. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we can go back if you have any questions. So the dam removal itself will involve removal of all concrete structures, including the spillway, a retaining wall, the fishway itself, the fish ladder, and a former raceway that was associated with the snuff mill building that was demolished in 2012. Also grading of the sediment immediately behind the dam, just to kind of form a little pilot channel and a low flow channel. But the rest of the sediment in the impounded reach, there's not very much of it. It's only about 1,000 cubic yards, which is pretty low volume by dam removal standards throughout the state. And it's very clean. We've tested it multiple times, and we're working with DEP to approve the sediment management plan. But the plan for that would be just to have passive transport of that sediment. And we've also studied any potential impacts downstream of where that sediment might end up and found no impacts to the Larkin Road Bridge or other infrastructure. So that's the plan for the sediment. This just shows a kind of elevation view of the existing dam. Here's the spillway, here's stone abutment or concrete abutments, and then how it would look once it's removed and a new channel is graded in that area. And lastly, there's also some stone called fish weirs, little weirs to kind of direct fish into the fish ladder. Those would be removed as well to eliminate that obstacle. This is the main spillway in the background and the small fish weir in the foreground. At I-95 bridge, as I mentioned, there's an existing scour problem. So and there's no riprap throughout that bridge. There's only riprap at the wing walls. So we're proposing placement of stone protection throughout the bridge channel bottom, and it would be infilled with fines to avoid loss of flow going subterranean during low flows, and it would provide a low flow channel for fish passage. So the blue outline shows the new proposed protection, and then here's an elevation view showing that low flow channel and the proposed riprap here. So that's the bridge, and then lastly, the weir at the USGS gauging station. So this is a plan view of the station. This is the little stone gauging building that you may have seen. The transducer itself is housed here in a pipe, and there's a concrete weir and then stone abutments on either side. And here it is looking at it from downstream, looking upstream, concrete and stone abutments. Proposed plan is to take out the right stone abutment to widen this out to more approximate a bankful width. It still won't be of true bankful width, but getting as close as we can within the confines of the site to, again, reduce flood flows and velocities through there, and placing stone protection so that the channel isn't head cutting or moving too much, because they will be using it as a gauging station continuing on, and removing the concrete within the channel. And here's just a photo that you can see the concrete itself during a period of very low flow. So this concrete would be removed, and this right abutment would be graded back, removed, and the slope would be graded back. And I think I'm nearing the end. So this just looks at access to each site. So for the dam site, we would be coming in from Larkin Road and building a temporary stone access path, primarily using the alignment of the existing fish ladder, which is here, to reduce cutting of trees through there. And then that would all be removed as they demobilize from the site. And up at the weir site and bridge, for the weir and bridge work, it would be coming in from the 12 Kent Way complex, from the access lane in the back, and using this as a temporary staging area. Again, laying a temporary access road down the slope, which would involve some tree removal, minimal as needed, and then a ramp down into the channel. And there would be cofferdams and dewatering involved for this area. And this just shows some of the anticipated changes to the wetland resource areas. So we've got land underwater in blue, bordering vegetated wetlands in white, you can kind of see some bordering land subject to flooding and the associated buffers and riverfront area. Under proposed conditions, you can see the main change is that the land underwater within the impoundment would narrow to a more riverine channel form, representing more natural conditions, and the dewatered areas are anticipated to form new bordering vegetated wetlands. And the buffers, the 100-foot BVW, or excuse me, the riverfront area buffer would change accordingly off the banks. And this just, as you know, ecological restoration projects do allow for temporary or permanent loss or conversion of wetland resources because it's for the greater benefit and net, ecological gain of the overall project. And I think this is my last slide of just an overview of all the regulatory reviews. MIPA has been completed. Several of the state permits have been filed, and Army Corps and historical ongoing. And then, as I mentioned, planning to file the NOI in January, and then a FEMA change would be post-project after it's completed. And as we discussed, targeting construction in the summer and fall of 2025. So I know I kind of flew through that. Feel free to ask any questions. I can go back if you want to see anything else again.
Yeah, a couple of quick questions.
Mhm.
Ownership, obviously the Locken Road Dam is on the property by the town of Newbury.
Mhm.
Now, on the USGS station and the DOT site, who is the actual owner of the property on that? And how do we
So-
handle that from an application standpoint and filing?
Yep. So we're getting signatures from all. There's 3 owners involved. So this parcel here, both sides of the river, is owned by a private family, the Puritans, and they are supportive of the project and have already signed, the permit applications that we've been submitting so far. And
Okay.
this owner here, as we would have to come through their site for access, is the commercial company that owns this plaza, and we're coordinating with them as well to establish an access agreement and sign the NOI application. So those are the owners, and then the town.
So the USGS site is owned by the town, or who is that owned by?
It's owned by the Puritans,
Oh,
so it's
okay,
private.
it's on their property.
Yep,
Gotcha.
there's an easement for the USGS to be able to come in and use
Gotcha.
that equipment.
And on the DOT riprap you're proposing, that's Commonwealth of Mass?
That is, yes, I mean, it's basically within the waterway, so yes. But we're also coordinating with DOT, but they're not actually a landowner for any land that we're accessing or changing. So that's why we weren't planning to use them as include them as a co-applicant on this particular application. They are a co-applicant on another state, the state waterways permit application.
Okay, let me open this up to members. Mary, questions for Jill on this project?
Yeah, so you said you've been through MIPA already? Was that just the notification, or did you have any thresholds that were exceeded that you had to file?
We did the streamlined notice under the new ecological restoration. Yep.
That's what I thought. And what is the status of the Central Street Dam downstream of this?
As far as like removal or repair
Yeah.
or fish
is there any-
modifications, I don't think has Ben joined the call yet. No, I don't see him. He's the best one to know the latest, but I don't believe they're considering removal at that site, as far as I know. I think they have working fish passage facilities, and they're happy with that, and that's the current plan.
Okay. You answered the question about sediment analysis and invasive species management. Do you
We
a
have an
plan
invasive
for that?
species management and monitoring plan. We've gotten some preliminary comments on that during the 401 and 404 site walk. And we'll be submitting that with this application as well. But essentially, there's not a lot. There's some pockets of things. We're proposing to, I think the purple loosestrife was the main concern, and we were proposing to, remove the seed heads from that prior to construction. Mason may have more information on the methods if there's questions on that.
Yeah, that was one of the main invasives that I had noticed in that area. Removing the seed heads. We had talked about that before. Jill, is probably the best way to go forward to prevent spreading into the the future seasons.
So this is a great project. It's a huge project, and a lot of different parts moving parts to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it make its way through the process. And do you have a estimated time when you said no January to file in?
January, yeah, I think we were thinking we'd file for the second meeting in January
Okay, great.
is the current plan, but like I said, we're still working on getting the access agreements sorted out. So it'll be pending that.
Right. I don't know if there's any interest in doing a site walk before January, just
Yes.
weather related concerns. But I know I would be happy to go out there.
Yeah, that was something I had thought of as well. So we'd be happy to do that
Mhm.
if you guys wanted to plan something.
Okay, Mary, anything else before I move on?
That's all. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Woody, any comments or questions for Jill at this time?
I don't have any questions. My only comments would be, it seems like a great project. I've canoed that whole stretch. I've worked on those fish ladders as a teenager on an Eagle Scout project, and the removal of the Lock and Room Dam would make sense as far as I'm concerned, as for the migration of the species of fish you mentioned. So other than that, I think it's a great project, and a lot of work's gone into it, obviously. There's
A lot of moving pieces on this one.
Yeah.
Mick, any questions for Jill or comments?
No questions. Just agree with Woody and Mary. It's a great project, and really looking forward to doing a site visit. I'd love to see it.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions or comments for Jill on the project?
Not at this point. It was a great presentation. I started taking notes, but then I stopped because it was like way beyond.
Sorry, I went fast.
Like I'm not gonna keep up with this tonight, so.
And I'll share the
I-
slides, and I'm happy to
Yeah,
answer
that's-
questions via email.
I just want to see the summary of permits and approvals at the end of this journey. It's gonna be pretty extensive.
It's a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
The ecological restoration process doesn't really streamline things all that much, although with the new MIPA streamlined notice, that does help.
Mhm.
So that's good.
In your 401, hopefully it's combined.
They don't want us to do combined anymore. You mean combined with Chapter 91 or combined
Or
dredge
combined
fill?
with your ecological restoration NOI.
Oh, yeah, no,
Because you're
we've already-
dredging. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
why. Yeah, dredging.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone from the public have a comment, a question on this? Not that this is a public hearing, but if someone has sat through this presentation, I think Jill or the commission would welcome any comments. All right, well, so team, this is just an informal presentation. I think we've got a good timeline, and it's a 3 to 4 month duration. They're looking to get going June 2025, permit pending. We're looking for an NOI in January of 2025. And so at this point, I mean, I'm just dying to see what the technical comments will come from the department on the filing here. That will be a laundry list of items, I bet. But
There won't be any.
yeah, well, you know what, Mary? I mean, Diane, you're right. Some of the projects you don't expect any comments. It's 11 paragraphs, and others it's just check the sieve analysis of the sand before you put it in. So
Our order of conditions is much simplified under restoration order because it's boilerplate. We don't get to add a lot of conditions or if
special
any.
conditions, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, your expertise on this is just certainly invaluable as it always is.
Not
Uh,
not on dam removal, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
So team, what's our pleasure? We can wait for the NOI to come in, look at the technical comments, schedule a site visit at that time, or is there an interest to do a preliminary site visit while the weather is conducive to walking through this area?
My preference, I'd much rather go see it while the weather is still good and we can get access and it's not icy, snowy, things like that.
Okay.
I think that would be my
All right.
preference, but
Okay, I'm gonna make a suggestion. Mason, can you and Jill schedule a time? And it would be, what other partners would we like to have out there so that we, as we walk through this? Ben might be a very big help if Ben was available when we did this. And report back to us at the December 3rd meeting. Maybe we can get a site visit the first week of December after our meeting. Does that
Yeah.
sound like a plan?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
may have a conflict with attending the December 3rd hearing. I could probably join. I might be traveling from Albany, so, but if you need, other project representatives can probably answer questions as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Jill, it'd just be a matter of coordinating a site visit and letting us know that between the 5th and 7th, it works
Okay.
for the parties. I
Great.
don't think you'd have to do an additional presentation at this point.
Okay,
I think it's just coordination of schedules.
great.
Okay, any other questions for Jill on this project?
No, thank you.
Okay.
None for me.
Well, thank you very much, Jill. Very informative. Looking forward to this. And thank everybody else for joining.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone else want to add any, you've spent an hour on the call here. Any comments you want to add? Don't want to cut anyone off either. We're doing pretty good here time-wise, so. Susie, anything you want to add to this?
Sure, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Susie Bresney, a project manager in the dam removal program at the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration. So been working with Jill and all the others on the team on this project, and yeah, excited to have your review, and I'll probably attend the site visit if that's all right, if I'm free the day that you choose. So
That
looking
would be
forward to
great.
meeting some of you there. Thanks.
Okay, and Joseph, I see you sitting there patiently. Any comments you want to add?
Hey, no,
You
Muted.
went on, there you
Yeah.
go.
there we go. I can just introduce myself. I'm Joe Holbesh from the Division of Marine Fisheries. I'm taking over Ben's position as the diadromous fisheries biologist for the North Shore. So you might see more of me a little bit, but nice to meet you all. And yep.
Okay. All right, well, thank you all, and we're gonna move on to our next order of business, but great presentation. Jill, can you send that slide deck over to Mason?
Absolutely.
think-
Yep,
I think it would be helpful if, can we put that on our website?
sure.
for-
Yep.
For public information that
Mhm.
may be,
We also have a public kind of box upload site too that you could link to. It has all kinds of
Okay.
documents in there.
okay. Yeah, if you and Mason could coordinate that, that'd be great. I
Yep.
think
Great.
it's gonna be a project of great interest for people, so.
Thank
Send
you.
that over and then we can schedule the site walk.
Okay,
Thank you very much, and Mason, just report back on the 3rd.
Yep.
On some projected dates, and we'll see if we can all meet out there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Okay, staff reports and updates. Mason, anything that you want to add?
Nothing for me at this time.
I know at 7:19, that's the perfect answer for this committee. All right, last word. Anyone have any comments? Mary, any comments you want to add?
No,
Anything?
no, good job, Mason.
Yeah. Yeah,
Woody, how
great.
about yourself?
No, everything's good. Thank you, Mason. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Mason has been doing a great job, everyone.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
baptism by fire too.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Any
Appreciate it.
comments?
Thank
Mason?
you.
Any
No,
comments?
no, again, it's great to see Mason on top of all these different projects and really, obviously, it's a lot to take on, and it's nice to see that he's
Yeah.
on top of all these projects. So thank you,
I think
Mason, for your effort.
I think he's enjoying the challenge rather than the grid pattern of Doomgrass on Plum Island.
I'll take
Diane-
care of that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can buy that. Yeah.
Diane, any final comments before I?
Nope, I can do grid patents. He can do everything
Okay.
else.
Well, who would like to, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll second that, Bob.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so Diane and Mary, we're gonna put you on that.
Sure.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
roll call, all in favor? Mary, Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Yeah,
Diane,
Aye,
Yeah.
aye, aye.
Bob Connor. Thank
Thank
you, everyone. The meeting
Good
is
night.
concluded at 7:20.